Amen. Amen. Let me just mark where we finished here. All right. Is this making sense? Are we getting there? Okay? I know there's a really scary aspect to this, and I have empathy for that. Just trying to see where I'm at in my notes for part 7 here. All right? I have a lot of empathy and sympathy for the fact that it all sounds great, but I have to trust a man. It all sounds great, but I have to submit myself to a man because it's part of the vertical alignment. You have to find somebody that actually has a flesh suit on to submit to. That's scary. I get it. And being someone that people do submit to, not everybody, but a few, you might be doing that, whatever, I take that very seriously. As all who want to step up, all you geniuses online that want to just correct everybody and answer everybody's question and everything else, are you ready to take on that responsibility? Or you just love to show everybody how smart you are and tell everybody how dumb they are? It's a big responsibility. This is supposed to be discipleship. Everybody says they want it. Most people have no idea what it is. They have no idea. It's everything. It's a commitment of your life for a period of time. Those disciples, as all discipleship was really done in the first century, they would go and live with that teacher, follow that teacher everywhere, watch the way that teacher talked, walked, ate, interacted with people, did whatever the thing was that the skill was, because they may have been discipling them as fishermen. They may have been discipling them as carpenters. They may have been discipling them, you understand what I'm saying? Anything. But they would follow that person around just like the disciples followed Yeshua around. That was not an unusual thing to see. Teachers had students going around with them everywhere all the time. This is a very common thing. As a matter of fact, it would be nice if somebody actually made a biblical movie of Messiah's time and show other teachers with other students in other places as they walk past them or something. Because it was a common enough thing. It wasn't like, wow, who's that weird guy with a couple of guys following him? Well, they would be like, oh, look, there's a teacher with some students. I wonder what he's teaching. So some of them would go by and get within earshot and go, oh, that sounds pretty good. Maybe I'll listen along too. Next thing you know, you got a whole group on the side of a hill. And they're hungry, and we have fish and loaves and all that kind of fun stuff. All right? But I'm hoping that we're understanding this is going to ask you to completely step outside of your comfort zone. On some level, at some point, absolutely, no doubt about it, guaranteed. Because you're going to be doing stuff you don't do now. Because nobody really does this now. Not really. Partially, maybe. Occasionally, to some degree. But even if you genuinely wanted to do it, how many guys are there out there that actually have the time to do it and allow you to follow them around and do all those things? How many of you could actually go move and be near your teacher to really follow them around like that and be discipled? See, we think of discipleship as a class. I'm going to show up with my Bible and my notebook, and I'll spend 2 hours in a class or an hour or whatever, and I'll do that a couple of times for a couple of months, a couple of times a week, and that's discipleship. Or you could take my online discipleship program. Now, I have an online introduction to discipleship. And that was put together many years ago, and some of you have been through that program. And it was just an introduction to the idea. And at that time, I was still sort of working out what discipleship really would look like. It's a big deal. But it's about complete echadness in a vertical alignment. Hopefully we can get that much out of it. Okay, this is called the Afterburn. So if you have a comment or question, come up in the front row, please. If you're online, you can type in your questions. Kurt and Rob will monitor that. And much to my surprise, Mr. Steve Waffle goes first.
Well, you touched on something that really struck me during this feast. So if I may be a little candid, and I sure hope I'm not outing anybody. I don't want to mention any names, but you spoke about relationship and the lacking of, and when you see something that, for me, I have friends that I don't mind sharing with.
Right.
I have a few, 1 or 2, maybe 3, 4, that I've told, you're welcome to come and bring correction other than leadership. And then there's other people who I just kind of know and will chat and be friendly with. So for me, it's important that a relationship is developed before, other than leadership, somebody would come and want to try to make a correction of something they don't understand. And I don't want to be like, oh, I'm all better than you, but I need that. And I invite you to, if you want to be my friend and want to come in close like that, let's sit down and talk, the guys, because I need more of that. I know that I have some lackings in probably that area, so it's important to me. So I just thought that was important because you had mentioned that, and it's a sensitive issue for me during this case.
Amen. Okay, so let me translate for you, since I speak Steve. I'm just going to make it simple. He's simply saying, I need that kind of relationship, but you can't really come into this circle, his circle of space, if I don't know you. In other words, I know you'll see me maybe in a position, you see people, they're distraught, they're upset, there's clearly something wrong. And you want to go over and say, is there something wrong? Can I help? But if you don't have a relationship, some people will not want to deal with that. Other people don't care. Anybody wants to come by. Most people, when they're upset, though, would rather just be left alone. They're still processing something. Give them some space. So if you're going to approach somebody who's clearly off in some way like that, you can see they're upset, you might want to approach and say, I don't want to intrude. If you need space, I'll walk away. I just was concerned and just wanted to offer. And then if they give you any kind of a negative response, like, because they just might not even be able to give you words, and then just back away and it's okay. They need that space right there. But what Steve is saying is, I need close people to me that I can unload some of my burden with, but I'm only able to do that with people I have a relationship with, is what he's saying, okay? And most of you are that way too. Okay, who's next? Okay, Shira? And I apologize, I needed to suck on a lozenge while we're doing this.
Hi, Janet. Rabbi, I am just so touched by, as you explain, losing our life in order to find it. And I have to confess, I have a long way to go before I'm willing to be up till 2 a.m. at City Cafe with you.
Yeah, if you want to disciple with me, if you're going to follow me around, you better have a good set of gym shoes and a good stamina to stay up late.
But it encourages me that, there were 120 in the upper room. And sometimes we think about the disciples following him around, but he had women following too. And so we women aren't left out of that. It's really exciting that we can be part of that and get to watch and speak and talk to you. And it's just wonderful. But the thing on my mind is that in the past few months, Father has been giving me just new direction, new vision for the latter years of my life, how to possibly use some of my talents and fulfill some of the dreams I've had since I was really little. But when I think of losing my life, sometimes it's hard to keep the impetus of the vision because, you just want to go all kind of loosey-goosey and kind of like, well, whatever, Father, I'll just lay down my life. And Father's teaching me that by keeping my eyes on Yeshua, like Peter out on the water, I am beginning to just taste, I have a long way to go, but I'm beginning to taste what it is to go full steam ahead, get really excited about what he's given me in front of me that could be done to glorify him. And yet, just beginning to be able to get myself out of it so that thing that I really want to accomplish is for his honor and not because of my lack of identity. And so there can be a real tension sometimes. Some of us need to get stronger vision, stronger impetus, stronger confidence as we go through, up to the challenge and we get healed and everything. But to realize that only by keeping our eyes and our focus on Yeshua and loving him and pleasing him can we walk in that place where I'm going gung-ho for this, Father, but if you should take it away from me tomorrow, it's all right.
Amen, amen. I just confused the sound man. He's like, why wasn't there any sound? Because I muted myself. Are these the lozenges you gave to Julie? Thank you. They're good. All right, Mark, go ahead.
Thank you, Rabbi. I have a question about, there was something in John 17 that's reminded me of a question I've had a while, and it's where Yeshua prayed for his followers and not for the world. I was wondering what your thoughts are on the issue of who is our neighbor, because I know that we're told to do unto others as we would want done to ourselves, and to love our neighbor as ourselves. So my question, I'll just say it as simply as I can. I've always thought of that as being everybody in the world, because in Plano we had Muslim neighbors to the side of us, and kind of like seculars to the back, and so forth. And is there any need for clarity on that subject?
Well, I think there's absolutely a need for clarity. I don't know that we necessarily have any. We see in the story of the Good Samaritan, we see certain issues there. Mm-hmm. I think that we have to understand that we have to primarily and first take care of those in the camp. But if you have opportunity, if something is brought in your path where you can do good and you can let the light shine, that we certainly should be able to do that. Also, just remember that doesn't mean that you put yourself in a dangerous position or at risk, etc. Just because you see somebody broke down or some other thing that looks like it needs help. It could be a trap, it could be a scam, it could be anything. Okay? So be very careful when you're helping those outside the camp. But certainly, if you have the opportunity to do good, we can. When we're told to love your neighbor as yourself, these are all verses that come in the context of the camp. Okay? This is all within the body. And I don't think that's a problem. And even the Samaritan was likely an Israelite that had assimilated, okay? And so, of course, they were looked down upon because they were assimilated, Israelites that had assimilated into the captivity. But it's always a tough question. We do not want to be culturally just isolated. We're not looking to do that. We're looking to show that we are compassionate. So I would love it to see if MTOI at some point could be able to show up at a disaster place and just be helping. Or go into the mission field, as they would call it in Christianity, not seeking to recruit members or to convert people, but just to go and help. Just to go out and help people that need help. Wouldn't that be something that would be great if we could do it? And then be able to answer the question, why are you helping us? Because of my relationship with my Messiah. Don't say any more. Well, what's that all about? Just answer a question every time they ask you. By the way, that's my big recommendation to all of you. If somebody asks you a question, answer only that question. It's not an opening of the crack of a door that you kick open to vomit everything you know in their face. I'm very, very good about that discipline. If somebody asks me a question, I will only answer that question and see if they have another one. If they are really interested, they tend to ask more questions. Some people are just curious Georges. They'll just ask you a million questions. They really don't care. But they just like to find out information. So don't be fooled and think, oh, I got one. There's no I got one. That's Christian thinking. You guys are out there with your harpoon or your shotgun or whatever. I'm going to get one. I'm going to bag me somebody and I'm going to convert them. Hey, let me take you to my living room. See, I got a couple of Jews up here I converted, and I got a couple of... That's the way I actually spoke to some Christians who sounded like that.
Like a trophy room.
Oh, I witnessed it too. I got a couple of Jews on my mantelpiece right there. Look, I got them back in 2002. I'm like, you kidding me? None comes unless the Father draws. Now, if one gets drawn into your path, be prepared to answer a question. Allow them to ask another question. I sometimes will ask a question. What's your background? Are you happy? And they tell me, well, I'm whatever, fill in whatever denomination you want. And I say, well, that's great. How's it going? Oh, I couldn't be more blessed. I'm walking in favor and all blah, blah, blah. Okay, I'm not bothering that person. That is an argument ready to happen. Because they're going to try to convert me. Now, if they say to me, well, actually, I'm kind of not going anywhere right now, and I was kind of frustrated, and I just got disillusioned. If they got to that, something's wrong, something's not right, something's missing, I might say, oh, well, maybe that might be somebody who might be ready. I'll just keep letting them ask questions. I'm still not going to start preaching or teaching or trying to guide the conversation. Let them lead. Let them lead. Okay?
Great.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, Shaquez.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Okay, so when I was in Christianity, Ephesians 4:11 and finding your role was as simple as taking an online quiz. So I'm wondering, I know that's wrong. I'm wondering.
There's the color code, the love languages, and the fivefold ministry quiz.
Yes.
What did you come out? I came out an evangelist. Those are the yellows, by the way. Okay. You want to go out there and kind of let everybody know what's going on? No, go ahead. I'm just goofing off. Go ahead.
But it really was. And I'm just wondering, for the teacher, emissary, etc., you're not to be self-appointed. And if so, how do they get their role? Are they sought, trained, and discipled themselves?
Okay, so the fivefold should be like with Moses' example, okay? The fivefold should be that the anointed appointeds that exist are there to identify other people that have anointing and appointing, okay? They're looking for, we'll make it more English. They're looking for people with the talents and gifts, and then they get to do the appointing of those people, all right? So for you, you're looking for people that are actually walking in those things. Now, you really are not looking for evangelists. You're probably not looking for apostles. Their role is not something you personally need as much. Okay, the body needs them as a body. Apostles go around and help plant congregations and do those kind of things. They're sent forth with a message. Evangelists are your promoters. They're the ones who say, hey, this great exciting thing is happening. You might want to come and check it out. That's the guys who are some of you on Facebook are evangelists. You don't even know it. Like somebody posts, like if I post a teaching, right away you repost it on your page and you put it in different groups you're in and you're letting everybody know, hey, this thing is awesome. You might want to see it. That's a mindset of an evangelist. Of course, Christianity turned the evangelist into, that's the big speaker that comes to the big tent and we put on a big show. No, the person promoting the event was the evangelist. Okay? Prophet, yeah, we could use some prophets. You don't want to work with the prophet. Because the prophet's going to get in your face and go, you are not doing it. Why aren't you doing this? You know what you need to do. Why aren't you doing it? I walk in that quite a bit. I'm not claiming to be a prophet. I'm just saying that's a role I walk in quite a bit. When you hear me saying, this is what it says, you know it's what it says, why aren't you? You got to do it. We got to do it. He's serious. That's what the prophet is yelling. All right? Cry aloud, spare not. Then you have the teacher. The teacher taught them what they should be doing in the first place. So the teacher taught them. The prophet walks in and goes, all right, I know you've been taught. I know you have a teacher. What's the deal? Why are we sitting around complacently not going anywhere? Wake up. That's the prophet. Teacher's like, okay, so you want to understand kashrut. So let me explain about fins and scales, and let me explain about chewing cud and split hoof, and about that's what the teacher's going to do. And this is what a holy day is, and this is what we do with it, and there's 5 of those, and there's 7 annual Sabbaths. The teacher's going to teach you all that stuff, all right? Then you have the shepherd who's going to be there to love on you and make sure you're safe and keep you protected like a shepherd does. Make sure that nobody strays off and keeps track. So when you have services, the shepherd in you, if you are a person you're the one who notices who's missing and is worried about them. Okay? The teacher might, the prophet probably wouldn't even notice necessarily. Okay? Or the apostle, the evangelist. Each one has their role. Because remember, the shepherd's the one that, if someone has a situation where their spouse is in the hospital and they're all worried and they're sitting in the waiting room, you will probably be sitting next to a shepherd if you have a ministry person sitting with you. Okay? As a matter of fact, you probably didn't have to ask. As soon as they heard about it, they just showed up. Because that's what shepherds do. Now, some people wear more than one of these hats. Sometimes you have a choice. You don't have enough of the hats, you have to wear them all. And so, yes, you might find a prophet or a teacher having a shepherd role, but you'll also realize and recognize that's not really their best strength. They're doing it, but it's sort of a kind of passable workman's job. It's not their thing, but they have to do it. Someone who is a shepherd, you will feel that love and concern. You'll feel safe. You'll feel protected when they're in that shepherd role. Okay? Make sense?
Yes, thank
okay.
you.
You're welcome. And so, no, you don't need to go to, fivefoldministry.com or whatever it is and take the test. I don't even know if there's such a website, but, there is. Well, there you go. Okay, Lisa.
Rabbi, I just wanted to say I'm really blessed to be part of this ministry, and I'm really proud of everything that you're doing, because you're not only building the word in us, but you're also creating a community. And the scriptures today just really jumped out at me. It was the unity of belief with the community, and not just the vertical or I know that's really important, but it was the community
it's
as
both.
well. It's
Yeah.
both. And I mean, we came from the background, and I think this is a reason that a lot of, even people in Christianity go from teacher to teacher to teacher, because they don't realise that God's plan was a community. It was a community from the very beginning, and a kindness with him, that community. So I just feel really blessed, and I just wanted to say that.
Well, I appreciate it very much. Appreciate it very much. Thank you. The purpose of the vertical alignment ultimately is to help us to form the forever community. That's why he gives us the two great commands: loving him, the vertical, and loving each other, the community. Janet?
Yes, Rabbi, thank you. I also had a comment about that verse that is so beautiful to read, maybe difficult to do, when it says, if anyone wishes to come after me, let him deny himself and take up his stick and follow me. And I have seen that in my own counsel with you, how at times you have asked me to do things that I don't necessarily want to do or feel like I can do. But because it's hard to do some of the things if you don't believe that you can do it, or sometimes you really don't want to. But I have been encouraged with this verse and with your teaching today, and go back home in my mind thinking, this is what I'm going to do. Because if I honor that relationship and I submit, I know that I'm growing in my submission to him. So that's awesome.
Amen.
And thank you. And so the other one was John 17:24, when Yeshua was saying, if I find it here, maybe you have it there. 17:24, at the end it says, because you loved me before the foundation of the world. I have always wondered about Proverbs 8, from 22 on, but specifically verse 23, I thought I had it somewhere here. Mm-hmm. When it says, I was set up ages ago at the first, before the earth ever was. Mm-hmm. And it continues on and on, before mountains were sunk, when he prepared the heavens, I was there. And it feels like it's a feminine voice. Is this Yeshua talking, when he's talking about wisdom? Is it him, or?
No, I mean, look, it's wisdom is a concept that we should understand. I mean, there's wisdom, there's understanding, there's knowledge. We know that there are times when people do things because they lack knowledge or information, and other times they do things because they lack wisdom. They have knowledge, they just don't know how to apply it. And Solomon is trying to teach his son, so to speak, here through the Proverbs about wisdom. He says, and the earth was brought together, all that was brought together with this concept of wisdom. There's wisdom in all of the creation. So it's not talking about a being here, it's not a metaphor necessarily, although you can look at it in that way, but I'm saying he's trying to help us understand where wisdom fits in things. We pursue wisdom because he's saying that having wisdom is the beginning of the fear of Yahweh. To be wisdom, it's wise to fear Yahweh. It says understanding. The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom, the beginning of understanding. I said it backwards. Right. So you have fear of Yahweh, it's wisdom. You have fear of Yahweh, it's understanding. You have fear of Yahweh is the beginning of knowledge. So all of this stuff was built and done with wisdom. He says, I was set up years ago at the first before the earth was. And then when there were no depths, I was brought forth. And when there was no springs of heavy water, before the mountains were sunk, before the hills, I was brought forth. In other words, before anything was done, wisdom was brought into it. It was made with that concept because this is a huge lack that's out there. People think they just lack information. No, a lot of you have enough information to do most of the things you need to do. You don't have the wisdom to apply it properly. In other words, you're saying, I knew what I was doing. Why do we question Yah? He knows what he's doing because he has wisdom. He has the wisdom that we need. Now, can he be talking metaphorically about this? Absolutely. Everything is written that way. But let's first understand it simply as the fact that there was wisdom in how this was all put together. And he wants to show that his wisdom is way above our wisdom. And he says, that's why he uses the foolish to confound the wise of the flesh, the wise of the world who think they're so smart. And he uses the foolish things to show them they're not so smart as they think they are. Okay? All right. Yes, sir. I forgot your first name.
Daniel?
Daniel, okay.
Yeah, I'm usually out in the world most of the time, floating around. And sometimes I get into different situations, like maybe at work. I'm working there just like everybody else. And then pretty soon people get comfortable with me to be able to ask me questions. And usually the first question they ask is, what are these and why am I wearing them? Mm-hmm. And then I'll give them a very simple answer. But if I get a little bit deeper than that, I sort of like get the expression of a dead fish on their face. Yeah. So I just kind of like drop it there and let it go.
Sure.
Other times, like for instance, here, I'll be approached by people who have a different agenda. They will start asking me questions, and as I'm answering that question, right in the middle of that answer, they'll ask me another question. And it's usually pointed towards their agenda of why they're asking me questions.
Absolutely.
And so, that kind of conversation is kind of like, there's kind of like a wall right there where it's not going to go too far. But once in a great while, I will, and it doesn't happen very often, but I will give like a very simple answer to somebody. Right. And all of a sudden the lights will click on and they will want to converse with me more about what I believe. And I've had a couple of people say that I have told them in 5 minutes way more than they've learned in any church in 10 years.
Probably.
So it's like every situation is different. Yep. And I'm wondering if we as a people just talking on any capacity is actually helping Yahweh to call them in. To say, okay, here's a person that just turned a switch in me. I want to learn more about what this person knows.
I've seen it rarely play through, though.
And I've seen it very rare, too. But it does happen.
I'm sure it does, but I don't think that you are the causality. You were just the vehicle that he led the person to, that they were ready to have somebody talk to them. But I'm just saying is, so in other words, if you were to duplicate exactly what you did with another person, it wouldn't work necessarily the same way. So it's a very rare thing, and it's again, but that's not because you evangelize, because someone asks you questions, you start answering questions, you let them lead a little bit. Usually when I see that they're just going to keep asking other questions and they really seem like they're just not interested in whatever it is, I try to change the subject, and I'll say something like, how about them Cowboys? Well, if they're going to be mad at me, I might as well give them a good reason. because they like their other team or whatever it is. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I try to steer the direction. I mean, as much as I know that it's unlikely that they're really going to get anywhere. And by the way, if I don't continue the conversation to get to the point where you got, they'll still find what they need to do. I'm not going to derail anything. Okay? You need to know something that's a fact. 2 things. You ready? You cannot say enough right things to a wrong person, and you cannot say enough wrong things to a right person. They'll figure it out. There are no magic verses for the person that's not ready. And the person that is ready is going to find what they need. Yah will lead them to it one way or the other. It's kind of like what Mordecai said to Esther. He said, if you don't do this, he'll find somebody else. It's going to happen. He's going to deliver his people. This is your opportunity. So you can keep answering questions and be patient. Again, don't push the issue. Try the best you can to do the things like what Daniel said. And you may find, rarely, it might open up a spark of conversation. That doesn't mean the person's going to take it any further than that, but at least it opened up a spark of conversation. But it's not that if you didn't do that, that person's never going to get there. If they're going to get there, they're going to find it. Because when you had your itch, you were going to go get somebody that could scratch it. You were searching every YouTube, every video, everybody, whatever. You needed to have that itch kind of worked at, right? Didn't you? All right, so that one person that, maybe gave you something, you were going to get there anyway. That doesn't mean we shouldn't take advantage of the opportunity to be available. Okay, you were available. That's great, okay? All right, Rabbi Tom.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi. Several things left an impression on me from your sermon, from your message. And one of them was in Matthew 4, Yeshua's encounter with Hasatan. I've been thinking about this, and the first thing, of course, almost needless to say, that Yeshua was able to recognize the enemy. And through our lives, we all encounter some form of Hasatan. Maybe in the form of another person, and we have to be able to recognize their intentions. But then Hasatan tried to sow doubt with an if, and Yeshua did the right thing. He answered with a very short, concise scripture. But Hasatan didn't go away. He didn't give up, because he countered with 2 verses from Psalm 119. And so Yeshua had to also counter with 2 verses. So he didn't give up on the first rebuff. He kept trying to agitate and sowing doubt like Amalek. And I think there's a lot of lessons in that one passage for us.
Amen.
And by the way, what about them Steelers?
Who? All right. Last thing I remember about them was the catch that Franco Harris made, that immaculate reception. And anyway. All right. What Rabbi Tom was talking about, I think that it actually sparked something for me. Do you notice that Yeshua, he said to him, if you are the son of Elohim, Yeshua never came back and said, well, I am the son of Elohim. He never argued with him. Never said, I'll show you, I'll prove you. I mean, how many of us, if we were that, would be like, but I am. He didn't feel like he had to do that. He said, you're going about this the whole wrong way, Hasatan, he said. Man doesn't live on bread alone. I don't need to prove anything to you. You know who I am. Okay, Santi.
When you're talking about John 17, talking about Yeshua is not of the world, and we are not supposed to be of the world.
Right.
The definition of the world is to not doing what the world people doing. And so I connect this with 1 John chapter 2, verses 15 to 16.
Okay.
do not love the world, nor that which is in the world. If anyone loves the world, the love of the Father is not in him. So that means if we love the world, then we don't love the Father. And then the love from Father motivate us not love the world. So that means we first experience the love of our Father, so that we don't love the world, and so that we don't be part of the world. And that's why we can deny ourselves in order to ask the will of Father to be done through us. So continue is at verse 16. Because all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. So it explains what the world means. And then 17, it said, and the world passes away, and the lust of it, but the one doing the desire of Elohim remains forever.
Amen.
So the world only, attract us temporarily, but Father's will in us will remain forever. So that means, are we looking at the temporary thing that attract us, or we look at eternal value?
Thank you, Sandy. Very well said.
Thank you.
I like verse 17, which says, but the one with the right works remains forever. That's what it says, isn't it? It says the one doing the desire of the Father, the one with the right works. Oh, but it's not about works. I'll tell John that. He says the one with the right works, the one doing the desire of Elohim. Yes, sir. Tim.
Thank you, Rabbi. I'm looking at John chapter 17, verse 20.
Yep.
And it says, and I do not pray for these alone. He's talking about his disciples, right?
Right.
But also for those believing in me through their word.
Yep.
So those are the people that after he left, they taught. Is that what he's talking about?
Well, I mean, it's really everybody that would be affected ultimately by the work they would do, which includes us.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. That's what I was trying to find
Yeah.
out. And then, so it says, so that they all might be one. They is us.
It's everybody that would come into the body.
Okay, so somebody like me that's new and I'm trying to learn and everything, and then now I'm an Israelite because I became covenanted. So at what point, I look around, there's a lot of people that's way ahead of me. And so, I kind of want to be hanging around with them and stuff too, but I feel, I don't know, out of place. You know what I mean?
I do.
So I don't know. I'm just asking you, how does somebody like me deal with trying to become part of that group?
Well, look, you got to have to first deal with the emotional response where you feel out of place. Ask yourself why you feel out of place. Okay, there's an insecurity there, or there's a pride issue there, or there's some other thing, and you should be able to feel comfortable enough to be with any group of people under any circumstances. It's not easy for us, mostly because we're still flesh to some degree. But there are underlying issues that have not been addressed fully that cause you to feel out of place. And not, when I say out of place, I mean out of place in a place where you shouldn't feel out of place. Okay? Because there are things that you could be finding yourself in a place where it is totally appropriate to feel out of place. Okay?
And I totally, that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like I should feel like I'm in place.
Ask the question so that you understand it. Ask yourself, what is it about it that makes you feel uncomfortable or out of place? And then once you can figure that out, you'll either know what to do yourself, or you can come in counsel and say, I figured out that I feel out of place because of a fear or a doubt or an insecurity or some other thing. Well, maybe they're not going to accept me, or maybe they're going to realize I don't know as much as them, or maybe I won't be able to be involved in the conversation because I won't understand what they're saying. Whatever it is, Figure that out, and then that can be addressed. Because the problem is not, let me rephrase that. What you're experiencing is a symptom of the problem, okay? So we got to figure out what the problem is. The symptom is you feel uncomfortable. Okay, so what's the problem? And we're going to talk about more of that stuff tomorrow afternoon, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
All right, Daniba? You guys have stuff on live stream that we need to get to? Okay, so we're running out of time, so we have to kind of, okay, Daniba, and then we'll go to the live stream.
Okay, I'm just going to piggyback quickly on what
You got to put that right up to your mouth.
the sister said. And then I was having that, like, when she said, the world, loving the world. And then I was viewing our own worst enemy is not always external, it's internal. The yaseh ara, the evil inclination.
Right.
And then basically, the Torah being the torch, the weapon that will help us realign our own evil inclination, to lay that down and to have Abba, the Father's way in us. So that's why sometimes we fight instead of, really studying the Word. We spend time listening to teaching and all, but all of this, it might do a little bit, but the breaking point is you taking the time to really get yourself into the Word, because that is the weapon which will fight our own evil inclination. And once we have control over that, then the external entity, high Satan, whatever, cannot have rule over us. And that's what I was getting out of it.
All right, well said. Okay, so she was referring to the Yetzer Hara, which is called, that's the Hebrew for evil inclination. Okay, live stream.
From Olivia, says, how are we to be an example if we can't defend everything yet when asked why, i.e. new to Torah and family members see our actions and question us?
Okay, so when you're new, the best thing to do is say, I've come to find some things that I really see as important and true in my life. I'm still just learning them. So what I can do is point you to my teacher, and my teacher can answer your questions, or my teacher has teachings. So just always, as a student, point to the teacher, okay? Point them to the teachings, send them, give them a phone number to call. You could always give them a card, whatever. But don't feel you have to answer the question if you're not prepared. You're supposed to prepare to give an answer, but until then, point to the teachings or send them to the teacher. That's what I answer most questions when people call with, have you heard this teaching yet? No. Well, go listen to that first and then call me if you still have questions. If I'm going to send people to the teaching and I could answer the question anyway, why wouldn't you send them to the teaching? Okay? All right, next question.
From Kathleen Phillips, says, question, can a woman be a disciple of a male teacher?
All right, so discipling, at this point, nobody can be a disciple. There's no teachers out there that actually are doing this or can really do it the way it needs to be done. Can the women disciple? Of course they can. This is for everybody to be discipled at some point. We're all supposed to come into the body. But in the discipling, you have to be discipled in your role. The men are discipled different than the ladies. The men and ladies have different roles just based on that part of it. And then we find that you might need to be discipled. If we find that you have a talent or an anointing in an area, then we find someone who's got that same anointing that can groom you in that area, male or female, okay? Because not all the men, actually, a very small percentage of the men are going to be fivefold. Because they might have other anointings, okay? They have anointings in hospitality or in mechanics or in engineering or in some other, whatever it is, they've got anointings. They've got their thing. And so everybody, I think, can be discipled. But the thing is, discipling is something that you do with someone who's going to help you come out. A discipling process, you go in and you come out something, okay? And so there's a discipling that brings you out and you become more like Yeshua. That's one type of discipleship. Everybody should be going through that. Almost all the teachings that I've been doing are designed for that, okay? Then discipling to be one of the fivefold is a whole different thing. Discipling for praise team, okay? You might be discipled. You might need to find a guitar player to help you if you have a gift for a guitar to help you to work that art that you have, or singing, or whatever it is. If you happen to have skills with your hands, maybe you want to go find something mechanical to do. Look for someone to disciple or mentor you. Okay, in the world we call this an apprenticeship type of thing. It's the same thing. Disciple apprenticeship as disciple as teacher Talmud. Talmud, as not Talmud, but the Talmud, or a student. Does it make sense to everyone? Okay? But as far as discipling to be Yeshua-like, that's much more general. We're going to transform into his image. That's for everybody. All right? And that's done in a more general way, like through the teachings that we're doing. Okay. Because we're not dealing with just 12 or 70. Right here, we already got 400. Okay? So it's a whole different sort of deal. Okay? You can't have 400 people following somebody around these days. That would get a little bit unwieldy. All right? We can't even all like take cars or walk necessarily just to get to the dining hall. Just imagine following somebody around. All right, next question. We're almost out of time.
Okay, from Olivia, says, what are some practical examples of things we can do each day to deny ourselves?
Okay, first thing you have to do is figure out all the areas where yourself is getting in the way, where you're actually letting yourself rule. And that means the stuff that I taught yesterday and the stuff that I'll be teaching tomorrow is a big part of that. You have to first examine yourself to figure out where you are in the way. You can't deny something you haven't identified. Like I said to Tim, okay, you're uncomfortable. Why? There's a self issue somewhere in there. So let's figure out what the self issue is so we can fix it. Because the self issue is what's uncomfortable, what's fearful or insecure or having a doubt problem, whatever. Those are the things that are now controlling or ruling in you that will cause you to not do something you should do or cause you to do something you shouldn't do. So that's where the denying self is. If it comes through a I don't like, I don't want, I like, I want, those are self. And you have to decide whether or not those things are actually in line with what he says he wants. He doesn't want you to do. And if you're in conflict, he's not wrong, you are. All right, so that's where you have to deny yourself and do it his way. Next question.
Okay, from Sylvia Cazares, says, please explain what Romans 10:14 is saying, being that we're not to reach out and spread the good news, if I understood that correctly.
Okay, see, this is where, and I don't want to pick on the person who said the question. We've been so well churched, we just are not able to receive what I've been telling you. Let me read Romans 10:14. How then shall they call on him in whom they have not believed? And how shall they believe in him of whom they have not heard? And how shall they hear without one proclaiming? I have no issue whatsoever with that. But why can't you hear that the one proclaiming is trained? You want to think it's everybody because that's all the churches ever taught. That yelling was not for you, whoever said that. That was for everybody. Okay? That was a general yelling. So everybody take a piece of it. All right? We have to understand this is talking about people who are trained. Because if it's untrained people, they're going to lead people into a ditch. So they have to be trained. Yeshua sent out the ones he trained to do this. Romans 10:14, he says, and how shall they believe in him of whom they've not heard? And how shall they hear without one proclaiming? It needs to be one who's trained in what to say. Because otherwise, what do you do as the same person, I think asked the same question, other question, which is, what do you do when they ask you something and you don't know the answer? Well, you're not trained. So you point them towards a trained person. Does it make sense? Okay. The problem is most of the people teaching right now on YouTube don't have training. But you listen to them anyway because you don't know. Never occurred to you to find out if they had any training, if they know what they're talking about. Now, they're not wrong about everything because some of the stuff is fairly simple. And look, even your church has had some things, right? I mean, it's not like everything is so complicated that you can't figure out some of it. But if you don't have a trained person who actually has that anointing and appointing and gifting to do it and has been trained, then you're going to end up in a ditch, like the blind leading the blind. And you end up in the ditch. Because you're blind, so you're looking for help, and they're blind, and they're leading you into a hole. And it's not a hole that looks like a hole. It looks like you've arrived into your destination. And now you think you've arrived. But it's a hole. But it looks like a destination. But you don't know the difference because you don't know where you're going anyway. So you need a trained person. And I don't mean somebody that necessarily went to like a seminary somewhere or yeshiva. Find somebody who actually has, look, you know what, pray. You want to pray for the Ruach to do something? Pray for the Ruach to show you the anointed person that you're supposed to go to. Ephesians 4, those guys, Ruach, Father through the Ruach, inspire me to know, is this person anointed and appointed? Or do I just like them because I like what they say, I like the way they say it, makes me feel good, you know, they look good up there on the stage or whatever it is. Don't use wrong criteria. Let what I'm saying or whoever the teacher's saying pierce through all that stuff and say, Father, is that what I was supposed to hear? Is that what you wanted? Well, I don't like the way he talks. What does that have to do with anything? I give you a smile after that. Are we really that fragile? Yes. As you leave, pick up your feelings bag at the door, please. And, we are. That's the problem. That's denying self. We're I don't like the way he said it. Well, what's that have to do with anything? That's a self problem. Well, I really like the way that guy talks. Well, that's a self problem too. Can we focus on the content and not the delivery? That would be helpful. Well, he's so intimidating. Well, I'm 5'5", barely. Not scare anybody. For those of you online trying to figure out, is he tall, is he short? I'm short. If I keep eating the meals here, I'll be just as wide as tall. I think I put on 10 pounds in a week here. It's crazy. It's a feast, thank you. Well played. I would like to say what came at the feast stayed at the feast. I don't want to take this all with me. Anything else? Because it's 5 o'clock. We need to get to, oh no, it's dinner time. No, actually, that doesn't start till 5:30, right? We got some time still? Oh, praise Yah, it doesn't start yet. All right, so we can take more questions then. Actually, why did I say that? Now I got to take more questions. Okay, we'll take more questions.
In Florida, they have a Messianic congregation in Lake City, Florida called Kol HaMashiach.
I've been there. I taught there.
And they have a thing where they go down and they feed the people of Lake City. Mm-hmm. Every so often they go down there, but the poor of Lake City know exactly when they're going to be there, and they do some great witnessing to people, and they're giving them something. They're giving them food, lunches that they make themselves, but they're witnessing to them, and the people are receptive to what they have to say. And I really believe that Frank and Gloria are anointed in some kind of way, because Gloria came from the streets of Lake City. She was homeless herself at one time. So I think that people see the genuineness in her, and they glean off her. And it's
look, I was there once. I was at a conference that they held. I was only there because the praise team that was there pushed for them to invite me to come. They had many since then and never invited me back. Okay. It was me and I think else there was Brad Scott and Mike. What was Mike's last name? Who? Clayton. Yeah, and that guy from Israel. I can't remember his name, but anyway, he's not even Messianic. He's just a Jewish guy who wants to sell his trips to Israel. But anyway, look, I don't agree with a lot of stuff. I like some of the things that they're doing. I mean, it's typical stuff. They're really not trained. And they have the things that they do, and they hold a conference, and they do the things they do. They do a good job of caring about people and trying to bring food out to people. I'd be really careful with the word witnessing. That's very Christianized, okay? You should be witnessing every day. It's called walking this out in public. That's your witness. Okay? We're talking about those who have the commandments and those who have the witness of Yeshua. They know what he did. And when they talk about, when we're reading in Deuteronomy about the witnesses, it talks about you're aware of the things that happened from Genesis to Deuteronomy. These are all things that witness of the people and of the Creator. And so the idea of witnessing, saying, well, while they're feeding them, they're sharing about their beliefs and everything else. And how many of them have actually started coming and attending and keeping commandments in Torah? Oh, they're like them because they're giving them food. So that's why I have a mixed feeling about missionary work. Two mixed feelings. One is, I really like the fact that somebody's out there feeding people that are starving. That's good. What I don't like is that they're feeding them if they'll only be willing to sit and listen for a few minutes. You got to sit and listen to this message and then we'll feed you. Well, don't listen to anything when you're starving. That seems kind of manipulative. No, actually it's not kind of. It seems very manipulative, okay? And blackmail too. I got some food, you got to sit and listen. Okay. So I don't like that part of it at all. And then the third aspect is the Christian ones are turning them all into Christians, making my job only that much harder. Okay? And so, I would love it if we would have some really good Messianic Torah observant missionary people to just go out and just tell people because we want to help people. If they want to ask us questions, we'll do what I'm teaching. We'll just answer some questions. Can we hold a meeting? Sure, we could hold a meeting and let people know. If you really want to know what we're doing, we're having a meeting over here, you can come. The food we'll give you anyway. We'll teach you how to build your shelters and how to make your own food. Well, you got to teach them how to fish, not just give them fish, So we'll try to go in there and do that with people. But it should be there to do that, not to try to somehow convert people. That undermines the scripture that says, none comes except the Father draws. You can't force the issue. You got to get rid of that Christianized thought in your head. They beat that into you. There are people going to end up in hell because you haven't shared the message. Anybody heard that? Okay. That's just not true. Okay, it's just a lie from the pit of hell, so to speak. That is just a lie from Hasatan himself. Okay? The first time I heard about Christianity and this whole thing of being saved and everything else, and I heard it on some televangelist for a few seconds on TV, and I wasn't keeping anything. I was some teenager. It sounded to me like those people thought that it was like a football game, right? They thought there was a contest between God and Satan, and God, it was like the last few minutes of the fourth quarter, and he was down by 2 touchdowns. We got to get it going. They made it sound like he was losing. It's like, what are you guys, crazy? What kind of God you believe in? He's losing. He's not counting on you. He'll get it done. You do it or don't do it. He'll find somebody else to do it. If that doesn't work, he'll find rocks to do it. He'll get it done. Do you have any doubt that he's not going to get it done? You think he's not going to get it done? You have any doubt that he can't do this? He's giving you an opportunity to be a part of it. He doesn't need you to do anything. But that's what Christianity taught you. He needs you. No, he doesn't need you. He wants you. He loves you. That's different than needing you to do something. He doesn't need you to do anything. He wants you to do it because he loves you, because he knows it will bring happiness and peace, that shalom, into your life. We talked about that yesterday, right? As part of the Up to the Challenge, about having shalom come into your life. And needs you to do anything. Because if he did, that means that if we don't, somehow he would suffer. Sorry, thought that was funny. We suffer because we don't trust and listen to him. He does not suffer because of us. He's disappointed. He's confused. Not say confused that way. He scratches his head and goes, why won't they just listen to me? Right? We have that verse today in Deuteronomy says, oh, that they would have such a heart in them to just listen to me. And they wouldn't be so miserable complaining all the time. So I'm not saying like he's confused, like he doesn't know. He just looks at us and goes, why do you make these choices? I gave you freedom of choice, and you make dumb ones all the time. And that's why I think that he had the Israelites constantly lose their freedom. You're not going to make good choices? Well, then good. I'll take away your freedom to make choices. You'll be in Egypt for a while. You'll be in Babylon for a while. You'll be in Assyria for a while. You see the pattern? You don't want to take advantage of your freedom of choice? Good. I'll take it all away and let you see how that looks.